Hi and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about nematodes and how these can help us keep our pets and ourselves free from ticks and fleas. When I first heard about nematodes to control ticks and fleas, I was very curious. Now, I am an osteopath and homeopath, so I really like to consider all of the angles before making a choice, especially when it comes to kind of biological solutions such as nematodes. So before forming an opinion and choosing to use them in my own yard, I actually did a lot of research to find out whether we could end up doing more harm than good. And that doesn't seem to be the case. Nematode seems to be a fantastic option to keep our animals, but ourselves as well, free from ticks and fleas, and especially the diseases that they carry. But there are a couple of things that we need to keep in mind if we're choosing to use nematodes in our yards. So what are nematodes? Okay, so nematodes are very, very small. They're called round worms, and they tend to infect certain species of bugs. And obviously, depending on which kind of nematodes you get, you can choose which kind of bug is going to infect. And that comes in really handy for us because we can then control our tick and flea population. So nematodes use natural body openings such as the mouth to get inside of the body of the species that they prey upon. This process only takes a couple of days, and when the nematodes actually get to eat their host, then they get to grow, develop, and then reproduce. The great thing is that because then they reproduce, they will continue taking care of ticks and fleas throughout the whole tick and flea season. There are several species of nematodes, and each species will control a different type of garden pest. So for us pet owners, we need to be careful and only pick the ones against ticks and fleas. And those are this one and this one. And we will call them SC and HB. SC is very, very good for fleas and for engorged female ticks. So if you are getting into this a little bit late in the season and you're thinking, I might have some female ticks I want to control, this is exactly right for you. The problem with SC is that it's not quite as aggressive as HB. So for small nymph type ticks and for the unfed ticks, they actually cannot attack them as well, and it has been seen under microscopes that the ticks are actually able to kind of bat them away. So if that's the issue, then I would go with HB. Now, HB is really great on ticks, and it will definitely get those tiny little suckers and really prevent them from getting on our animals. It's also a lot faster in killing them. So if you are only trying to control ticks, you could definitely go with just HB. But personally, when I'm choosing for my yard, I actually decided to go with both and kind of give them the double whammy. Now, as always, when you are buying something that's living, we want to make sure that it's actually in good shape when we're receiving it. And the problem with nematodes is that they're so small that you actually can't see how many of them are still alive. So it's really important to buy from a reputable supplier. Now, the issue here is that sometimes from the producer to the consumer, so to us, there are so many steps, and nematodes can be a little bit finicky and could, if there's too many steps, actually arrive and they're already dead. So how to get the best quality? The best bet is to go to your local supplier, garden supplier, and ask them and buy them directly from them. Now, for some of us, that's not an option. So I also researched and found a list of really, really good and reputable suppliers, and they're the ones who are actually the producers. So you would actually only get that step of getting them shipped from them to your house. And I left it all in the description, so you can go ahead and check it out if you're interested. And you also want to make sure that you are buying enough nematodes for the size of your yards. So you should have about 250,000 juveniles for about a square meter or about a square yard. Keep in mind that some suppliers do say that it's okay to use less, but then they recommend spraying again in 2 weeks. And for some of us, that's just not possible. So it's really best to start with the right amount right at the beginning. You will receive nematodes in different forms depending on your provider and what they can give you. So nematodes can come in the form of gel or water-filled sponges, and these actually can be organic. So if you do happen to have an organic garden or you run an organic farm, then you can definitely get really good source of organic nematodes. Alternatively, you can also find them in clay pellets or dry granules. Every manufacturer will have specific instructions, but make sure to mix the nematodes with some cool distilled water, mix them well, put them in the canister, and then go ahead and spray them in your yard, and make sure to use all of the water mixed with nematodes. Unfortunately, as I said, they're a little bit liable, so you cannot save the canister and spray again. Everything that was mixed in needs to be sprayed in that session. It's also recommended that you really give your yard a really good soaking before spraying the nematodes, and that you keep your yard well irrigated for the first 2 weeks after spraying nematodes, because you really want to make sure that they have the right conditions and they really are allowed to do their job. And of course, because nematodes are alive, we need to be careful that we keep them in the right condition. So they shouldn't stay in your hot car for a couple of hours because they might possibly die. And you also have to be careful when you are spraying them that you are spraying them at a time where the conditions are ideal. And what do nematodes like? So they like cool, moist conditions. You should not spray them in the heat of day, so you should spray them either in the morning, or most actually recommend spraying them at night, because then the temperature will obviously stay lower and moister and cooler for longer, so they can actually really start doing their job right away. Now, thankfully, both of the species of nematodes, so SC and HB, that attack ticks and fleas have similar environmental conditions, so we don't really have to remember anything other than their specifics, and those are between 20 and 30 degrees Celsius or 70 or 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So obviously the time of year and the temperature are very important when spraying nematodes, but I also want you to keep something else in mind. So nematodes will also be very effective against larval stages or nymph stages, so really early juveniles of ticks and fleas. So it might be a good idea, if you live in an area like I do that doesn't really have a hard freeze during the winter, to actually spray them not only at the beginning of the season but also at the end, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to decrease the general amount of ticks and fleas in our yards and how many of them will actually survive the winter, because obviously if we don't have a hard freeze, the life cycle of ticks and fleas can actually slow down and they can take as much as 200 days to mature. So we really want to take care of those juveniles so that they will not mature over the winter and we won't find them in our yards in the spring. And this was actually a really hard lesson learned for me when I moved to Germany, because I used to live in Minnesota, so I had a lovely winter season that would take care of parasites. But here in Germany, the temperatures are not that cool, and what we also have is hedgehogs. We have a lot of them. They're adorable, but I didn't know that they actually carry ticks and fleas, and particularly fleas, and when it's cold, hedgehogs will spend the night really close to houses to stay warm, which means that they basically bring fleas into our yards, and I actually happen to have an infestation because of hedgehogs bringing them in. So hard lesson learned, and definitely use nematodes a little bit further into the season to make sure to control those last little fleas. And while nematodes are very helpful in reducing the amounts of ticks and fleas that are in our yards, they're definitely not the only thing that you should use to keep ticks and fleas off of your animal and off of your human family. There are a lot of options that you can go over, and I actually go over all of those in this video, and I also tell you how I combine nematodes and shampoos and spot-on products and basically everything that is available depending on where I am and what my environment is like. Thank you for watching us. Give your dog and cat a kiss from us. Give us a like, please, if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!